Let's talk Tanya for the 27th of Teves. And before we get to today's Tanya, let's do a larger recap of where we are in Tanya, actually starting from the very beginning. Tanya, as we mentioned multiple times, is based on the pasuk Ki karev elecha hadavar miyoed beficha v'vavcha la'asaysai. It is here to tell us how serving Hashem and doing the right thing 24/7 in thought, speech, and action is something which is a reasonable expectation from all of us. It's doable. The first chapters of Tanya, chapters 1 through 8, the Alter Rebbe over there was describing the animal soul and the godly soul. We need to become familiar with the actors in the struggle. Chapter 9, we learned about the struggle. Chapter 10, 11, and 12, we learned about the outcomes, the possible outcomes in the struggle. Tzaddik, Rasha, Beinoni. Chapter 13, reality check. Chapter 14, we learned that all of us, we should try to become a Beinoni. That should be our aspiration. And then from there on, we started moving into the concept of avodah, the concept of internal work, the idea of using the mind to influence the heart, to create and generate emotions. It has independent value, internal work. That work has independent value, even if a person happens to be perfect already in thought, speech, and action. But also ultimately, it is very key to be able to serve God at all times is using the mind to create, to generate and create emotions, holy emotions, and create holy emotional congruence. And then in the last chapter, in chapter 16, we also learned the idea that even if using our mind and meditating and contemplating doesn't lead us to full-fledged and full-blown emotions, intellectual emotions, as we discussed yesterday, that's also enough. Now we can finally say we understand the pasuk Ki karev elecha hadavar miyoed beficha v'vavcha la'asaysai. Now we can understand how it's something which is doable for every single one of us. How is it possible to say I could do the right thing all the time? If I use my mind to create emotions, then if I'm emotionally in a certain place, then the struggle really becomes lessened to a much greater degree because there isn't that huge tension between the mind and the heart. And it's actually reasonable to say that I will be doing what Hashem wants, Torah mitzvahs, in thought, speech, and action all the time. And what we learned in yesterday's Tanya was very key. Because the idea that I don't have to have full-blown emotions, but intellectual emotions are enough, because ultimately, if I needed to have full-blown emotions, then I can't say Ki karev elecha hadavar miyoed. Then I can't say that it's practical for everyone, because not everyone can create those full-blown emotions. But once we learned yesterday that the intellectual emotions are enough, now there's no more excuses, because pretty much everyone can use their mind to create those intellectual emotions. And if you have those intellectual emotions, that will be enough to get you to do the right thing all the time. So the bottom line is, if we take a little time every single day to focus our mind and try to create a certain emotional posture, certain holy emotions, whether that leads to actual full-blown emotions, whether that leads to intellectual emotions, that's something every single one of us can do, and that will lead us to moyach shalta lev, the mind controlling the heart and doing the right thing all the time. So we've wrapped up our conversation on Ki karev elecha hadavar miyoed beficha v'vavcha la'asaysai. At least for now, we've wrapped it up. There will be other ideas that we'll discuss connected to Ki karev elecha. Tomorrow, we will find out that although for most people, this whole program that we described, which is the mind influencing the heart and influencing its feelings, works, there is a certain type of person for whom will not work. That person is the exception to the rule, and we will find out who that person is in tomorrow's Tanya.